So good morning, Ravi, and welcome to this interview with IUSSTF, US India Artificial Intelligence Program. And first, let me just give a brief introduction of you. So Ravi is the head of the Robert Bosch Center of Data Science and Artificial Intelligence at IIT Madras, where he's also a professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering. So he has a couple of decades of rich research experience in machine learning with a special focus on reinforcement learning. That is a extremely hot area today. So he's been collaborating with various industrial research labs both in India and elsewhere. So he brings an interesting perspective of research, both the basic as well as applied with the industry. And he received his PhD from the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. And prior to that, he did his graduate work at the Indian Institute of Science. So he's got a good experience of how things work, both in India as well as in the US. So welcome, Ravi.
Thank you.
The first set of questions are around the graduate programs in AI in India. So please tell us about the programs that are run at IIT Madras, the MTech, MS, and the PhD programs in AI, and what makes it unique in the Indian and the world context.
Thank you, Andy, and thanks for inviting me to this forum. And so in the IIT Madras, we don't actually have a BTech or an MTech program independently in AI yet. So what we have is a 5-year dual degree program where the students can earn a bachelor's in any of the engineering departments here, and they earn a master's in data science. Yeah. So this allows them to have a core expertise in one of the engineering disciplines, but also then learn all the AI techniques and data science techniques needed, to work with data from that domain, right? So typically, many of the computer science students already specialize in, doing AI, right? So we didn't want to think of starting a separate AI program, but we wanted to make sure that students who are coming out because, it's always at the end of the day, it boils down to data, and you should have at least one domain in which you understand the data well, as opposed to being too much of a generalist, right? So that is one of the reasons we looked at it that way. And we started this 5-year dual degree program. Right? So apart from that, we run a lot of certification programs for people in the industry, right? So people who want to upskill themselves in AI and data science. So we run a couple of programs that are more in the works, and you should see them, right? And finally, IIT Madras has done something pretty, I would even say revolutionary for the Indian context, which is offering this online BSc program in programming and data science. Right? It's a 3-year program. It gives you a BSc, not a Bachelor of Engineering. It gives you a Bachelor of Science degree because 3-year degrees can't be Bachelor of Engineering in India, right? But then it's a very rigorous, very thoughtfully designed program on making people data science experts, right? It's a full-fledged undergraduate curriculum. So it has, we teach everything, like basic math, basic programming, even basic English and things like that. So all of these things are taught. It's a full-fledged undergraduate program. It's entirely online. And what distinguishes it from other MOOCs is that there is a very strong mentorship program along with this, right? So like every student can reach out and talk to a mentor, and these are not just the current students in the system, not just the usual teaching assistant. These are people who are employed full-time by the online BSc program. And sometimes they're volunteers from among IIT alumni who also formally sign up to be a mentor. And this has proved to be a huge hit. So we have basically done about 1 year now worth of course offerings. And the students are really thrilled about the whole program. And we're also expanding this now so that people can take, instead of doing the full 3 years, they can do just 1 year at a time and earn diplomas or certificates based on what portion of the course that they have completed. So we're not even making it mandatory that they have to do the complete 3 years. But if you would like the IIT Madras degree, right? So you have to do the 3-year program. Otherwise, you get certificate. I think it's a pretty revolutionary thing that we are looking at. And our goal is to be able to touch at least something like 10,000 students per cohort. and still maintain the strong mentoring support. Right? So that's what we are working for. So apart from this, the traditional program is the dual degree in data science.
And what about the MTech, MS, and the PhD program?
Sure. So we don't have an MTech in AI per se, right? But our MTech curriculum is very flexible, right? So the MTech in computer science, right? MTech students basically have to do 2 core courses, literally, and 1 lab, right? Apart from that, everything is electives, right? And even one of those core courses is actually kind of a soft core. They can choose either or. I mean, if they want to do more, theoretical computer science kind of thing, they can choose more fundamentals of theory kind of a course, right? But then if they want to do more AI and data science and machine learning and other things, they can basically choose a linear algebra. Like they can choose a math course instead of the theory of computation course, right? And so that's basically it, right? And as far as the core curriculum is concerned, everything else is an elective, and almost more than 50% of our students end up doing, intro to machine learning, deep learning, computer vision, NLP. They choose their electives in such a way that it's virtually a specialization in AI, right? It's all but in name a specialization in AI. We don't call it an MTech in AI yet, right? And the MS and PhD programs, it's up to the interests of the students. We don't offer a MTech in AI program or MTech in CS or anything. And we strongly encourage interdisciplinary work. In fact, more than 60% of my students are currently advised by people from other departments, co-advised by people from other departments, right? So, so that allows us to, have it's entirely up to the research scholar, the MS and PhD student, how they want to tailor it. And a good fraction of the theses that are written in the department and also supported by our center. This is across departments, right? So my center basically supports students from 10 different departments, including humanities. So we have students who are working jointly with humanities, looking at AI's impact on society and things like that. So even though the degree itself will not say MS or PhD in AI, right? I mean, actually our degree just says Doctor of Philosophy, doesn't even have a department on it, right? So, but then we have a very strong, in fact, there are like nearly 85 research scholars in the Robert Bosch Center for Data Science and AI, who all are working in AI and related areas, even though we don't call it as a.
No, that's very interesting. And could you throw some light on the number of faculty, both in computer science as well as the allied disciplines, who have an interest working on AI or AI-related topics?
I think we did this some time back, and we ended up with some number close to 70. We did this exercise.
Very nice.
Across all departments. Not all of them are part of our center or part of the computer science department, but there are people who are independently doing things that are related to AI. I mean, so there are people in chemical engineering, civil engineering, mechanical engineering, design, management school, of course, biosciences, everywhere, right? I mean, it's almost every department you'll find a good number of people. In fact, this morning, coincidentally, I was having a discussion with a colleague when we were picking out electives for a new MTech in like a new dual degree in complex systems, right? And then it turns out that there are 8 departments that offer an intro to ML course.
That's good, yeah.
Not just CS, right? CS, electrical engineering, chemical engineering. I mean, there's like so many things, right? It's become like one of those, finite element methods course in an engineering school, right? Every engineering department will offer a finite element method course except computer science. Now it looks like every department is offering a machine learning course.
Very nice, very nice.
How all pervading it is right now.
So I mean, so this is interesting. I mean, we're seeing the germ of AI percolating in multiple other disciplines as well, which is
repercolating.
Yeah, which is very interesting. Yeah. So what are the advantages and the challenges of having these graduate programs where there are multiple disciplines coming in and leveraging AI? So
So I mean, if you look at many of these quote unquote fundamental AI courses that are being taught in other departments, right? They're all very geared towards applications in their department. So for example, I was just looking up a civil engineering course in this, and it's all the applications, use cases, and like the last 2 modules in the course are all about applying it in construction. Right. So then they have like 3 modules introducing some various AI concepts, and then they go into that. So if you're catering primarily to the core discipline, right, then you would have to essentially end up teaching AI as an applied course, as a tools and techniques course, where just like you have CAD CAM tools, you have AI tools, and then you use them to solve certain problems in your domain, right? So that's how some of these go. So but the challenge comes in when we bring all of them to the same table, right? And we find that students come in with very different, varying backgrounds. This is within the IIT system itself, right? This is one of the reasons we are very hesitant to float something called an MTech in AI, because once we do that, people from different disciplines come in, normalizing it and then building on top of it is difficult. So what we have done is, after a lot of thought, we designed the core curriculum for the MTech program in data science, right? Is all basically things that bring people up to the same level, right? So for some students, some part of the curriculum might be too easy, but then they come to the other course and say, oh yeah, we never did math in such great detail. Oh, but we are very good at programming. And then there are students who have been doing more continuous math, but they have not paid that much attention to programming, and then they come to the programming side of things and they find it hard. So we basically have this thing. It's not a perfect solution. So some parts of it is, like I said, easy for some students, and other parts are easy for other students. But then that's the way it is, right? And then from the next, once we are done with it, the last 3 semesters, 4 semesters, the students are free to choose multiple electives, and then their last 4 semesters in their program, right? They can choose multiple electives, and they also do a good project, right? In data science, yeah.
So it's like there is a what shall I say, a creative force of attraction as well as dispersion between the AI concepts, foundations, and the domain.
Yeah.
So which needs to be managed well, depending on what the end objective is going to be.
Yeah. So there are, the computer science department keeps, we are checking out, fundamental research work independent of domains, right? Independent of final application. So we talk about, algorithm theory, proofs, and things like that. But then when you finally go down to the brass tacks, right? When you want to get these systems deployed, there are so many questions that come up, which only people in the domain can answer. And training this kind of, the cohort that straddles the domain and AI, right, is going to make it a lot more easier, right? For us to build solutions that can eventually see deployment.
Fascinating. So the next set of discussion that we are interested is on the research program. So it appears that we have both the foundation, the theoretical foundation, as well as the applications of AI. So how do you see the trend between the folks pursuing their PhD research, focusing on building the theoretical foundations of AI, and as well as applying AI in their respective domains?
So there is a huge upswell of interest in non-CS domains, right? Where the people are now finding that many of these data-driven solutions coming out of AI and machine learning in particular, right? Deep learning is now is useful there. People are trying it in various domains where they never thought of it before. Like protein folding is an example. Now we have a whole group that is looking at, okay, what can we do with this, the structure library that is released by AlphaFold, right? So what can we do, how we can build on top of it and things like that. So there is a lot of excitement in looking at, newer directions to take the application domains in, right? So AI, applied AI. And so there's a lot of work that's happening here. And because our center is an interdisciplinary center, we get to see a lot of this also, right? So in fact, a good fraction of the 80 theses that are being written at the center are application driven ones, right? And in the theoretical side of things, right? So you know how it is right now, right? So there are like this 3-prong in which research is going, right? At least 3 prongs in which research is proceeding. So one is getting better and better algorithms, the latest, greatest, fastest, next trillion model, trillion parameter neural network and things like that. So that is one direction. So the basic foundational algorithms, architectures and things like that. And then there's another direction where we want to say, no, we have to make things simpler. We have to understand what is happening. We have to look at the dynamics. You have to break open the black box and look inside it, right? So that direction of work, all this explainability, fairness, and also talking about brittleness, I mean, and the impact of data on the learning. So those kinds of the softer, in some sense, right? The management issues, if you will. Right? So those also are happening. And then the third prong is essentially the hardware side of things. Right. So how do I get it down to, looking at embedded systems or even looking at faster hardware or trying to build low power hardware that can be more faithfully, implement these neural computations, and that direction also is happening. And we work on all three directions in IIT Madras. Not necessarily at my center. So the computer science department is doing a lot of work in this direction. The electrical engineering department is doing a lot of work, especially in taking ML to the edge, looking at embedded systems and AI and federated AI and directions like that, right? So I think a lot of work is happening in the fundamental research side as well. So I mean, it's not as if there is any, in some sense, resource constraint right now, right? AI is well funded. There's a lot of students. I mean, so for us, the resources are twofold, right? The funding is one thing, but actually getting students interested in it is another thing, right?
So how do you? I mean, given the kind of demand for AI graduates in the country and elsewhere. So how do you motivate some of these MTech and MS students to continue their PhD in India, for example? So
that's a challenge, right? So that's a big challenge. And so one thing that is happening, right? See, well, I'll tell you something. Students are not always mercenary, right? In fact, I find that a good fraction of students are actually interested because they are still idealistic, right? They're still interested in helping the nation. They're still interested in making an impact where they see, if they can see that their work is going to actually have an impact, right? They are likely to stay back. So, I mean, so as long as we can start looking at projects, right, where we give the assurance to the student, it shouldn't be that the student starts thinking, okay, if I slog away for, 1.5 years, I'll get one paper out of it, and then off I am going to the US because that paper lets me get into a good school. As opposed to that, if the student sees that, okay, if I'm going to slog on this for 1 year, and this is the impact that it's going to have on the field, or this is, there's this startup that is going to come out based on this work. And these kinds of things are going to keep people in the system, right? So, I mean, the students have still not become completely cynical. So you have to appeal to their, their sense of wonder and their idealism, and then actually truly, cause that to happen. So that will keep students in the system. In fact, IIT, I mean, there are some of the IITs which have been amazingly successful, right? I mean, I have to pay, the due respects to IIT Kharagpur, but they have amazing in retaining students in their system. In fact, they retain their BTechs, get them to do PhDs, become faculty, and then become directors also. So that's, they have people stay in the system throughout, right? So they've been very successful at doing it, but we are slowly turning around, right? So we're still not got to a point where we are getting a huge torrent of people, but then a large number of our current PhD students were already master students in the program, whether an MTech program or the MS program. So we do get them to turn around and then continue on for a PhD. And many of these students produce very good work because they are in the system a little longer, right? Because they're getting their MTech and then getting the PhD. And so that's going really well. And another program that we have tried to get, fresh graduates more involved in research is something which we call the post-baccalaureate program. So which is essentially for people after their graduation. Now we have extended it to include MTechs also because there are a lot of interest from people with a recent masters, right? So within like 2 years after your graduation, right? After your last degree, you could apply for this fellowship. It's a 2-year fellowship, at most 2 years. And you have no strings. You just have to do research. That you're not hired for a specific project in mind so that you are tied to, doing the delivery to the company on the project or anything like that. You are free to do research. And the only goal we expect from you is that you publish. Right, and they get much better stipend than our graduate students also. I mean, okay. Our MS students, yeah, we give them a much higher stipend than the MS students, and they get money to go to conferences. If they publish in a A or A star conference, we support it fully so that they can go and present it. There's no limit. As long as it's a highly ranked conference, we'll find money for them to go, right? And like that. So there are a lot of other things that come with being a postbaccalaureate fellow. And almost all our postbaccalaureate fellows have gone on to do a PhD after they finish their term here. Unfortunately, almost all of them are outside India now, whether in the US or in the UK, but they are all gone there. But then the point is, when during the time they were here, I mean, they added a lot of research value. Right? So they were not doing coursework, they were not doing TA work or anything. They were just focused on their research full time, and a lot of them did really well. Right? I mean, we won certain international competitions through this postbaccalaureate fellows, and then a lot of very good publications are coming out now from their work. So it's been a very good experiment, and we are expanding it now, right? And in fact, we are very shortly this week actually we will announce a postbaccalaureate fellowship specifically aimed at women, like women students.
Very nice, very nice.
And there we are going to add a few more things, like you can go to all this, Grace Hopper conferences and other things. We will fund the women students to get plugged into the women in tech community in India, right? And also we'll find mentors for the women mentors, like so that they can get more advice on the, how to survive, women surviving, advancing in technology, which we don't have a lot of mentors. I mean, if you look at the IIT system, right? I mean, how many women in tech faculty do we have, right? So we are hoping to partner with our alumni who are very successful and have them come on board. I'll come back to the alumni association at some point with
very
another
nice.
hat, indeed.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. No, this is brilliant to hear. So it's always nice to see that there are serious efforts going on to build a very vibrant research community in AI at IIT Madras, and I'm sure at the other IITs as well. Sure. So let us now shift.
Yeah, what IIT Madras does today, the other IITs copy later.
Of course, yes.
like the research park and our interdisciplinary center.
Sure. Yes. No. RBCDSAI was the first. It's like, I think IIT Delhi has just started one, and IIT Kharagpur, I think,
has one.
A couple of years
started,
back. Yes.
Yeah, started one a couple of years back, and IIT Bombay also has C-Minds. Yeah.
Okay. Very nice. So
Sunita Saravagi is heading a center in IIT Bombay.
Right. Yeah. No, this is, I think, great stuff that happens at IIT Madras. So switching gears now, the partnership with industry, especially at that at the research level. So you run a very interesting center, the first of its kind in India, RBCDSAI. So how does how does industry get involved in some of these research projects, and what's the collaboration between industry and IIT Madras, and also the kind of domains, the industry domains that seem to be more interested in working on research problems in AI that you see right now?
Oh, tell me about it. Industry is too interested in AI, whether they know what AI is or whether they need it or not. And so that is a huge challenge. But then we have had a lot of success. In fact, we are funded from the CSR efforts of Bosch, right? So it's a CSR funded center. And we have a lot of collaborations, nearly 30 plus MOUs that are running with various companies. And then we collaborate across the board with I say that we can largely put our things into 4 buckets, but then the 5th bucket, which is miscellaneous, is also much larger than any of the 4 buckets. So we do a lot of work in manufacturing analytics, right? So we have done projects for GE, Saint-Gobain. Now we're working with Dassault Aviation and Applied Materials, Ashok Leyland, a lot of manufacturing companies, right? And there are a few startups that we look at. And we're also talking to some industry bodies about getting, SMEs, right? Building AI solutions for small and medium scale and industries, right? Because they can't, really fund research on their own, and there are a lot of very interesting problems that are there, and how would you tackle it? So we are talking to industry bodies so that to see if you can get people to come together and do something jointly, right? So that is one part. That's the manufacturing analytics, and then we do a lot of work in, smart cities, right? So mostly in smart mobility, like transportation, right? So a lot of work happens in collaboration with our transportation group. and the Center of Excellence in Urban Transportation. And so we work with the Emergency Response Service in Chennai. We also work with the Traffic Police, and then we work with a bunch of other organizations in terms of the transportation, like Chennai Transportation, as well as Chennai Traffic Police and things like that. And then we do some work on pollution monitoring and control. And we work on water distribution. So we have a lot of very, very interesting research projects, and some of these are actually like quasi products that on doing better water management, including things like better sensing, because the sensor feeds into the data, right? So the better sensing and better control algorithms, a lot of work that happens in water distribution, and also a little bit in smart grids. So that's also happening. So that's the smart city side of things. And many of these projects are funded by government organizations. Not necessarily not that we are tying up with companies at large. So that is a smart transportation project that was funded by TCS for several years. Now we are moving on to the next phase of that. And then the third vertical is financial analytics. So we work with companies like Wells Fargo and Societe Generale, and also locally we work with Dwara. Dwara is an NGO that looks into, at least we have been looking into the microfinance market with Dwara, and a lot of very specific India-specific risk models and things like that, because most of those don't exist right now. So we work with them on building those kinds of like things like lifetime value of customers, and a lot of risk and behavior analysis happens. And then the fourth vertical is healthcare, and on additionally systems biology. Right? So looking at genomics and proteomics and things like that. So that is a very strong vertical of us. In fact, there is a separate center called IBSC, which focuses on this integrative biology and systems medicine center that focuses on the healthcare side of things very closely in collaboration. In fact, almost everyone who is at IBSC is part of RBCDSAI, so wearing two hats, including me. So we had two hats, and we look at both things. And we have done a lot of very interesting work in collaboration with some companies, hospitals like Shankar Nethralaya and the Indian Railways, the railway hospital, right? So we have done a bunch of different projects along those lines, right? So in the healthcare space. And apart from that, there's a whole bunch of other things we work on. So for example, we do projects with Ericsson, right? And then there is this other company called Verisk Analytics, which is a risk underwriting company based out of Jersey City. And so we work with them. We do a lot of work with Adobe Research. Adobe Research has been a strong supporter of research at our center. And Microsoft, Google, a lot of AI for social good work that we do that is kind of funded by Google. Right? And so even this women post-bac program, so Google is backing it. So they're funding the program. And yeah, I mean, almost anybody you can think of. At some point, we have worked with Amazon, with IBM, with all the big majors. And so we do a lot of work with TCS again, across various verticals, both in the financial analytics. I should have mentioned that we work with the financial side of TCS as well. Like
awesome. So
things like that. So there's a lot of companies that are interested. I'm not done. So we do a lot of work with the industry. I have one more thing that I need to say. I'm sorry if you're running out of time. So there is one of the things that we figured out was, right, so quite often companies, even though they have a lot of interest in working on AI, they really don't know what is there, right? So what we have done is, in fact, as we speak, the press release is going out. We are starting this industrial consortium for knowledge sharing. Okay, so it's basically, there's no joint research yet, even though it might facilitate that in the future, but the consortium itself is primarily as a knowledge sharing platform. So people, I mean, the companies that sign on to the consortium get access to all our material, and also the internal meetings, internal talks, workshops that we conduct where the students present these material. They are invited to that, and they have access to the recordings as well. And then they work with the faculty member, so they get a dedicated faculty contact who can introduce them to the various research that's happening in the center, and then also connect them with the right people for doing further research. And they also get invited to an annual showcase where they get exclusive time with the students. Right, so with the current research scholars and graduating students, they get to spend time exclusively. And apart from that, we do certain directed workshops only for the consortium members. So this is basically to get people to understand what is the scope of the research that is happening here, and hopefully it will let them take some of this internally, because many of these things we publish. And if they want to do some joint development of research or even adopt our ideas into their flow, we want to facilitate that. So that we have started this consortium as well.
No, this is brilliant, because this was the next question I had for you in terms of how does IIT Madras interact with industry to prepare a workforce, a graduate level workforce, sophisticated, in their understanding of AI, ready to tackle industry level programs. And your consortium is just one example of that.
One part of it, yeah.
Yes, so, and how else would you engage with industry?
Like I said, we offer upskilling training programs. That's one part of it, right? So we have one on applied data science and machine intelligence that we teaching with Talent Sprint. And then there is one that we do along with IIM Bangalore on technology and management. Right, and so that has been running for 3 years now. So we were completely revamping it, and it's going to come out in a new avatar shortly from the 4th year onwards. But this program is just launched, right? We started classes earlier this month. The other one, the Talent Sprint program, advanced data science and thing. And apart from that, we also have evening MTech programs, which are actually MTech degrees offered by IIT Madras. So while the other two programs are like 11-month certification programs, this is like a longer duration. I think it's 18 months, but it's an MTech degree program. So approved by the IIT Madras Senate and things like that. You're actually considered an IIT Madras student, but it's a lot more rigorous and demanding. So you do multiple courses, multiple things. So you do this over the weekends, and this is so we are. I think IIT Madras has something like 14 or 15 of these programs running in various 14 or 15 MTech evening industry MTech programs. So we are launching one on industrial artificial intelligence shortly, right? Again, this will help people who are working already. And so the thing with the industrial MTech program, the other two certification programs, the people undergoing the program just appear for the interviews and things like that. For the MTech program, the company has to nominate them.
Okay.
So it's a more tightly tied in with, so it's more like a B2B kind of a model. So we offer it to the companies, and then the company selects students, and then we filter them after that. So it's a fairly rigorous program. It's not like because the company sponsored you, you're not guaranteed to get this. So it's still a fairly rigorous program, and we do make them go through almost the same material as happens in the regular programs. So these are some of the things that we offer for the MTech. So apart from that, there are two online things that we do, right? So there is the BSc program I talked to you about, right? So you can take either the second year courses alone or the third year courses alone, and as a working professional in the industry. So you could be, so the full 3-year diploma, 3-year course, you have to register it as a full-time student, but you can get these short-term certification or diploma things, which runs for a year. So if you do only the second year curriculum, or only the third year curriculum, you can get a degree. This is open for people from the industry. So we would like people to also go through that thing. I mean, if they want to get so each of these has a different flavor of offering. For example, if you are taking the second or third year courses in the online BSc, we assume that you have done the first year courses. While the IIM Bangalore and IIT, the Talent Sprint programs that we teach, right, will also teach you the basics. I mean, so it's not like it doesn't assume that you come in with, it just assumes you come in with your industry background, not that you have any backing in data science or AI. But while the online BSc program will assume that you have done the first year AI courses. So things are of different flavors, right? And there's also other things that we do. For example, we have tied up with the Ministry of Statistics and Plan Implementation to be their training partner. So we have trained about 750 scientists from there. So initially it started off as a face-to-face classes. They used to come here and go back, and now it is all online, and they are very happy. I mean, so they're so happy they're recommending us to other departments now, saying that you should go to them for training and things like that. So we do that, and likewise we do some specialized training programs for the DRDO on demand, and we run a annual training program for the Indian Navy. So they select a cohort of 35 to 40 officers, and then they come and spend about 2.5 weeks in IITM, and we train them on the basics of data science and AI, including a very strong hands-on component. So all of these things we offer. Mostly we have been doing this for government labs and the armed forces and so on, things like that. We have not started doing this for individual companies yet, just question of bandwidth. But we do have these other programs that I talked about, which is more scalable models for looking at people in the industry. And I mean, how much ever we do, it's just a drop in the ocean. So I really would want more IITs, IIC, the IIITs also. I mean, many of them do it, but we're still not at a scale where we can offer good training to a large fraction of the industry. And because of that, there are a lot of other options that are out there that are getting popular. So.
Sure. No, this is, I guess, AI, everybody wants AI, and I guess that more the merrier. I mean, good quality folks offering such kind of programs, I think, are always going to be important in getting our workforce well prepared for the AI era. So so you mentioned in brief about more number of such programs required and active participation. And you also mentioned about the government departments being very active in terms of sending their folks to learn. So the next set of questions is on two things. One, how the governments, industry, and academia can collaborate. And there is one more element to it, and since this is IUSSTF, how US and India governments, industry, and academia can collaborate and make this a more powerful initiative.
So I mean, yeah. So the Indian government has been trying many models of academia, government, industry collaboration. Like there is this imprint. Projects which we are supposed to have an industry partner and somebody who is committed to eventually, if the project succeeds, taking it to the market and things like that. And that's funded by the government, right? So, and then the industry puts in some amount of money, and then there is this Uchita Ravishkar Yojana, where or the UAY program, which is even more further advanced in the technology readiness level. So we really are looking at industry and academia partnering and really building a product, right? I mean, it's less about fundamental research and more about taking it to the market, right? So addressing all the last mile issues and making sure things are ready. And again, I'm not sure how many of these have actually resulted in products that are going to the market. So usually, just like in any startup gamble, right? So you fund like 100 of these, maybe 1 or 2 will succeed. And I would really love to see the government actually play up these success stories, so that at least people will have a ideal to aim towards, as opposed to just treating it as yet another funding program with a friendly company on board. So that's, I mean, so there are hurdles to that, right? So people are trying, and it's not succeeding in a big way. So we have to figure out what are. I mean, there are other models that have been tried in various other countries. Like Canada has a model, right? Australia has a very successful model, is what I hear, for industry, academia, and government partnership. And so anywhere there is fundamental research has to be carried out, right? So very few enlightened companies are there that will be funding that. So you really need the government to come on board. And so we'll have to figure out what is the right model. I don't think we still have cracked it yet, but we are still trying. A lot of different approaches that people are looking at. And as far as the US collaborations is concerned, it's really important, right? Because there's a large bulk, if nothing else, because the large bulk of research happens in the US and North America, particularly, especially in the AI data science area. And I mean, that's good amount of work happening in Europe as well. But certainly, just by volume, I think the US overwhelms everybody else. And there are a lot of very good collaborations at the individual level that's already going on. Right? So in fact, even at our center, we collaborate extensively with Purdue, with Ohio State, with UT Dallas, and with Harvard. There are a lot of collaborations that are already going on with various US investors.
Yeah. So given your experience of collaborating with the US agencies as well as Indian agencies, so what are if we need to really ramp up our creating a workforce in AI programs that create a sustainable workforce in AI. So what do you think would be those 2-3 programs that you would want agencies, both on the US side and India side, collaborate on with people like you and folks in the industry?
There are two things here. So whenever people tell me about creating a workforce in AI, right? I think there are two things that are getting mixed up, right? So just like you have computer programmers who can implement vision design. I mean, they have so many things that they have to take care of to make sure things work and so on. Right? You need a workforce that is skilled in doing that for AI systems. Right? That doesn't mean that they are good at doing cutting edge research. Right, but these are the Kaggle warriors kind of thing, right? I mean, people who can get on and maybe use some existing tools, existing packages, but then you have to put together pieces of a system, and there is so much to do. Like there is the whole data handling part, and then the analytics part, and then the visualization, final reporting, all of these, and then the decision making on top of it. So when they're talking about AI workforce, people have to worry about this whole ML ops pipeline, right? They need not necessarily do research on it. Right? And I think we are getting confused because the academics like us, are really training people to do cutting edge research in AI. And then the industry is looking for people who are going to do this ML ops work. Whenever they say we want an AI ready workforce, and the 75 people from the data science program that I'm graduating, we are, at least for us, because we are making this an interdisciplinary data science program, we are trying to make sure that they can at least work in their parent discipline, right, off the bat. But quite often, that is not the kind of training that is being imparted in academic institutions. So that is this gap, right? And then you really do need these people who are capable of doing research in AI, whether it is at a startup level or whether it is at the MNCs. That you need these people because they are the ones who are creating IP, who are creating value, and who are driving technology forward. But you need both of these, right? I mean, so people who are doing research. In fact, quite often my students get stuck. They have clever ideas, but they are not able to get the library to work the way they want, and they're stuck for like 3 to 4 months just trying to fix the library. If I had a very good ML ops guy, right, he would be able to drive research forward very quickly. And I see this happen in organizations like Google, right? So I just did a sabbatical at Google, and I see how both pieces work so well together inside an organization like that. Right? So I think that's the piece that we are missing here. Right? So we don't have a good understanding. Academics don't have a good understanding of what is it that the industry wants at large, at scale, right? But we end up producing these people who are super skilled at doing a problem for which the industry is not ready yet, and so they end up going to the US and doing the innovation there, or in somewhere else and doing the innovation there. So it's a tough question, right? So the ML ops training, right? I'm pretty sure it can be done within India. I mean, so we really need to just pull up our socks. I mean, NASCOM is doing some part of it. They're trying to build the skills academy and do some training and things like that. But I think there is a piece missing. So we really need to get people from companies who are very good at doing this ML ops, and then get them to design these kinds of programs, which then hopefully somebody like NASCOM can coordinate and get it delivered. Right? And so that's one part that we really need to get our act together on. So get the large manpower of AI implementers, and then getting the AI researchers going. Right. So that we need strong PhD programs. Right. So when people do PhD here in AI and ML, the biggest stumbling block, even if you're getting a prime minister's research fellowship, right, you're paid a fraction of what you would have earned if you're in the industry. Right. So I'm saying that, I mean, I don't want to pick another engineering discipline and get into some kind of blame game or anything here, but it is fact that computer science salaries are through the roof. And if you insist on paying the same stipend to a computer science student, and especially an AI student and somebody else, right, and saying that, oh, we have to be equal across the board, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
Yeah.
So some mark-to-market kind of check on the fellowships.
Yeah, or some kind of a way in which like they do in Europe, right? So where you have an industry appointment and you are doing a PhD, and make that more common, and so that kind of a drive would help, right? Or do more joint PhD programs where people from India, I mean, and the US also advise, but then just like guys here would like an offshore posting for their jobs. IT company guys always want to go to the client side and work, right? So like that, we should get our PhD student when they go to the US, they get paid US salary, US stipend. So that will make it a little bit more attractive for them, and to create more of those positions, right? So where there's a free movement back and forth, and so with some kind of an understanding that, hey, if you go through this program, you'll spend just like they have in some of the other fellowship, right? Like Fulbright, you have to go back to your parent country and work for a couple of years or something. So some kind of an understanding, and create more such fellowships where people have to come back to India and then find a job here, not necessarily settle down.
Yes. No, this is a great point. This is a great point. I think the kind of mobility and the exposure that Indian scholars will get elsewhere, especially the US, is, I think, very important, because, as you said, that's one of the hotbed regions of for AI in the world. And this kind of completes the set of questions that I had for you, Ravi. But is there any other thoughts that you have on creating, a very high quality graduate level workforce, both doing research in academia as well as working on cutting edge problems in the industry? So any other thoughts, closing thoughts that you have?
I really think that we need to, because some of my best PhD students or people who are actually working part-time in the industry. So they are coming with some fantastic ideas, and they know what is relevant, and they know what has been solved, because they are not interested in reinventing the wheel for their company. I mean, that their company is already doing, and then they have already shipped out version 1.2 of the product. So they are now looking for version 5.2 of the product. So they want to go leapfrog and go into the future, right? So even though some of these are kind of product driven, but they understand the landscape so well, and they're actually doing cutting edge research and publishing in good venues, right? So in fact, I have this student who has published only 2 papers so far, and both were best paper winners in the respective conferences in this paper.
Awesome.
And he's working for a company, he's doing his PhD part-time. So there are, so I think more of these should happen. Right? So the saying that, PhD is this endeavor where of course, all of this is happening because the company is enlightened enough to give them time off. Right? So if you're going to work a full-time job with the company and do research, it's not going to. So both sides, there should be this, a little bit of a relaxation of their rigidity. So the institution should say, yeah, we are welcoming of more part-time students. And the company should say, hey, we really want these guys, to become good at doing research, so that eventually they are actually going to contribute to my company. So let them, we'll give them time to work on this. Right? So at least a day a week or something like that. And without it impacting their performance reviews, right? So that is another challenge, because usually, companies say, okay, fine, you can work there, but while you are doing your PhD, we'll give you a 0 on your performance. So that shouldn't happen either. So that should be some amount of enlightenment on both sides. But I think that will certainly help improve what's happening, right? Because so academics in India still don't have a great visibility into how the industrial research operates. There are a few, but not enough of them. So having this kind of students who have the visibility into both sides, right, would help.
No, fascinating. They're the bridge between what happens on the industry side, and then you're pulling them in and then giving them a good grounding of what happens on the academia side. So yeah. I think it's a nice balance that hopefully more number of organizations, firms will work out with academic institutions like IIT Madras. So Ravi, this has been fascinating. I mean, a lot of insights. And I guess that any faculty member, both in India as well as in the US, will get insights on how this whole domain operates at a graduate level in India. So you've given a nice bird's eye view. And I hope that this acts as a germ for more collaborations that happen between India and the US. And there are some interesting projects, both research projects or teaching and skilling projects that are collaborative in nature.
One point which I didn't mention. So one of the things that the pandemic has really made us open to is doing a lot of things online, right? Including things like co-teach online, right? So it's possible for us to think of designing programs where it's partly taught from India, partly taught from the US or other countries. I mean, Europe might be more convenient because of the time zone differences. But even with US, you can do like morning and evening classes and things like that. So we could potentially even think of this kind of co-taught programs, right? With students and faculty coming from both countries. So that's one more model that we could explore. And thanks to pandemic, it's not viewed as an impossible endeavor anymore.
Yes, no, that's a good, very good suggestion. So hopefully, I think we can facilitate some of those.
We are starting it already.
Oh, excellent.
With some, we are in talks with some European universities to do this kind of joint online web MTechs or something. So it's convenient because some universities already do that. So they do teach online programs in Europe and US also. I think even somebody like Purdue has an online program. So when they already have an online program, talking to them about joining with an online program from India and then doing this jointly would be fantastic. In fact, we tried this with in a very, very small scale, even way before the pandemic, with the University of Nebraska Lincoln, right? Where there is a single course, like a civil engineering course, which was taught at like 8 p.m. or something India time. So there's this big studio. So some days the faculty from India will teach. So there will be students from India in the studio here. There will be students in the Nebraska in the studio there. And sometimes the faculty from there will teach. Sometimes the faculty from here will teach. But the students physically used to come to the studio and they were interacting. So it was like, and both students took it for credit.
No, this is a fascinating model. I think, yeah, we should explore this, at least at the graduate level where the number of students may not be that high. Yeah. I think it's definitely doable.
No, that is one thing, but completely web program, right?
Yes.
I was just saying that this was something which we tried at the as a graduate elective, but we could certainly do it if it is a full web program. We could just do a full MTech degree or a master's degree program through that, like for a year and a half or something.
Wow, yeah, that's taking it many notches higher. And
yes, exactly. That's what we are looking at now.
Very interesting,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So great, Ravi. So it's been fascinating as always. A lot of good insights, new insights. So I hope that India and US can make all of this happen. So thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we'll have a lot more interactions with you in the coming months on this.
Look forward to that. Thank you.